the devil's in the details. Like, what models going on? Like, how are you thinking about the cost of the model? What what does the assistant have access to? How do you manage the context? Like talk to me about how I get like a legit answer out of this thing that makes me trust the product, because I think that's, in the projects that me and Taylor are working on, whenever we're adding like an AI chat feature, it's like, okay, how do we manage the context? All right, welcome back to Redacted. I'm your host, David Shaner, and I'm here with my co-host, Taylor Kotner. I'm coming to you live from a hotel room, but I can't, the hustle never stops. So if my audio is a little bad, we'll deal with it. Redacted is a show about what it's like to actually build a company with AI in 2026. So no influencer content, no reviews of the latest models. Usually it's just me and Taylor tearing open what we worked on for the last couple of weeks and showing exactly how we did it. Today we have our second guest. Our friend Josh is on the pod, and we'll bring him on in a second. Before we bring him on, so Taylor, I don't know if you know this, but me and Josh met, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. It was right at the beginning of when we were starting to play with AI offline. And I had Josh, like he came and sat in the conference room, and he spent like 2 hours just screen sharing up on the conference room, like how he was building this low code, no code product called Elephants at the time. And he was the first person that I had ever seen that was actually starting to use the OpenAI, like the backend API. So he was like, "Oh, I've got this thing does this thing does this thing, and then it shoots this packet off to OpenAI, and then it comes back and it's been AIified, and then I can shoot it over here into my product." And I was like, "All right, this guy's a hustler and a builder," and so I've been excited to have him on. So let's bring him on.
Let's grab him. All right.
Josh,
hey,
what's up, man?
Josh. Welcome.
Thank y'all for having me. Excited to talk a bit today.
Yeah, excited to have you. So you heard me hyping you up a little bit. Do you want to just give us like the 1 or 2 minutes on elephants, and however you want to do that, like where it started, where it is, or just what it is? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So Elephants today is sort of a like operations software for small teams. Think people 1 to 5 usually. The theory is these smaller teams right now, especially in like the entrepreneurial support organization space, have big networks they're managing, lots of projects, lots of knowledge, and it's not shared amongst the team easily. Platforms exist like Notion, Asana, Todoist, you name it, it's there. But the thing that I've observed is a lot of these teams still aren't using them because like the setup's hard. You have to kind of be technical to understand how to set up like an Airtable database. And Elephants kind of comes out of the box ready to go for these teams. And a really, really big focus of the platform is an AI assistant that basically serves as like a thought partner and kind of operations person for these small teams that can't afford one. So obviously we'll dive more into the product, but that's kind of like the 1 minute spiel on what it is today.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, me and Taylor are a 2-person team in a lot of ways, so I'm excited to like put myself in the user shoes as we go through it. One thing I should say before we jump into screen sharing is that Redacted is, I think, distributed as a podcast format, but we also have a YouTube channel. And I always like to say at the beginning of these shows that if you're ever lost about what we're talking about, or you want to see the visuals behind it, just tune in on YouTube and check out the visuals. So yeah, Josh, I mean, I'd love to have you just maybe screen share, just take us into the product however you want to, and sort of what goes on behind the scenes to make it run. And then I'm sure that'll be like catnip for me and Taylor, and we'll start asking a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Happy to do so. Let me hop over to this. And I'm gonna give you all this as if I were doing like a really quick like product demo for let's say like a customer, and I'm going to do this out of I'm gonna do this out of a demo test space, actually. Just because in the elephant space we have a lot of like actual names of people that I'm working with, and I don't know how much of that I'm gonna want to make Taylor go back and edit out. So in the
Thank
elephants
you.
platform, essentially our teams get access to a space where they can see all of their relationships as these nice little cards that they're doing, managing, building. And they can see all of the projects they have going on. And the data structure for this platform is like super simple. Like you open a relationship and you'll have your basic about, contact info. If our teams have had meetings with people, they can see like meeting transcripts and items that came out of meetings here. We have organizations that allow people to bucket people into orgs, and then there's like tags in the platform. So in this example space, I don't have one set up, but you could like tag a relationship advisor, open that, and see all of our relationships that are marked as advisors. And then each relationship comes with tasks that can be assigned to them, and then notes that can be assigned to relationships. And at a high level, I know that's like super simple, but that's like the way that a relationship works inside Elephants. It's like a record that can come with tasks and notes, and it's specific to a human being. And projects are very similar. The only difference is projects aren't connected to like a person specifically, rather just work that a team's doing. So projects can be sectioned. Sections can hold tasks and notes. So this is like an example of an events and learning project for this example organization. And each of their sections were built around an SOP that they imported. And they've got notes inside of each section that have info about like how this project ran, commonly repeated processes. If they were doing something related to catering, their tasks would live here. And yeah, and again, like high level, it's a project management operation style app that has this unique focus on people. The cool part really isn't this. This is basically a glorified Notion board. Like somebody could probably rebuild this in a few weeks if they wanted to in Notion. All of your tasks get pulled out, all of your notes get summarized, whatever. The cool thing is this assistant. I'm going to pop them open up here, but the assistant's really like the meat of the product. So when a team is trying to interact with their workspace, they can just shoot this AI assistant like basically anything, questions about the people they know, questions about the projects that are running. If they want to make updates to relationships, they do that through the assistant. If they want to make updates to projects, all that's done through the assistant. And the assistant's accessible in app, but there's also like an SMS phone number, which is what David was talking about me showing him a while ago when we were just starting to build that out. So I'm happy to walk through some of the cooler flows that I've done with this assistant building the platform. But that's like a high level what this app looks like and what we do.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind for me is I'm just extending what you said. Like we all know that UI is kind of cheap in 2026, and like object relationship schemas, like all that's pretty cheap and easy to build now. The AI part's always a little harder than people think it's going to be. Like I think the two things that come to mind for me are like what's going on under the hood here, right? I'm opening up a new thread. I'm talking to this assistant. The devil's in the details. Like what model's going on? Like how are you thinking about the cost of the model? What does the assistant have access to? How do you manage the context? Talk to me about how I get like a legit answer out of this thing that makes me trust the product, because I think that's, you know, in the projects that me and Taylor are working on, whenever we're adding like an AI chat feature, it's like, okay, how do we manage the context? What, like, how do we make it trustworthy? How do we make it not hallucinate? So
yeah, I think for me too, like,
yeah.
The other edge of this for me is like, it looks like it can do things too. So like, you asked it to go update a bunch of tasks, right? Which is something that I'm doing all the time with Claude Code, where I'm like, I need to have something visual for myself, but I don't want to manage it anymore, right? Like you don't need to manage a ClickUp board anymore. Like you don't need to manage a GitHub issues. Like if you're a small team, I feel like it's like, yes, I want a history somewhere. And it looks like this is doing that too. So there's like an aspect of tool creation that are very custom to elephants. And I'm like, you know, maybe just like touch on that at some point in addition to like David's stuff. So.
Yeah. Okay, so there's quite a bit to talk through there. And I will say the assistant is, I could have strapped just like an LLM onto the app and been like, done, cool. You can ask it about your contacts and it'll do a search. But when we were first building the app, it was a personal relationship management app. And I threw in like that level of assistant where it was like, oh, the assistant could just query all rows and attempt to answer a question about a person's network. And it really didn't work well. Um, so on the back end, this assistant works through the data in the app very much like a user would. So I am going to hop over to my like elephant space here, and I'll let you know if anything pops up that I feel like we'll need to redact.
Yep.
And we can obviously blur this out in post. But for instance, and there's going to be some names from some customer discovery conversations, so we'll probably want to blur maybe some of this. We can talk about it, but in this example with my assistant, I was trying to make an adjustment to my landing page for the actual website for elephants. And I had just had conversations with a few individuals from different organizations that operate as ESOs. And that data lives in elephants. It's, if you went and you found the person and opened their card and then looked at the meetings, you could extend that meetings card and you could see like the literal quotes in their transcript. And the elephant's assistant works that way too. So when I sent it this message and I said, hey, take a look at my last few calls with potential customers, take a glance at the transcripts and help me figure out what language might make sense for a landing page. The assistant, the way that it's coded is it's going to literally search. Well, it's going to hear, okay, I'm looking for potential customers, and it'll start obviously with the names that I gave, and it'll probably look at those. But then it's also going to say, okay, the user has tags in their workspace and the user has a project for customer discovery. And I'm going to look to see under either of those, are there relationships that I'm missing, or is there context in either of those locations that'll help me find more conversations to look at? And it's going to check, again, very human-like, each of the different locations in the app to find the info that it wants to source before answering the question. So in this case, it went and it found 4 conversations that I had with different people from different organizations, pulled out all of the quotes and everything, and used that to help me refine like my own landing page language, which was cool. I was hoping that this was going to show this, but a thing that I've done in our assistant too that makes it a lot more accessible to the app is it pulls in cards from the actual like workspace and uses like the literal data objects inside of a person's workspace to answer questions. So if I went to this assistant and I asked it like a question, literally, can you pull in a note that contains an SOP from, I don't know, a project related to catering? The assistant, again, is going to search the workspace probably for a project that's named something like catering, and it's going to see, does that project have a note related to catering? And then again, the user asked me to like pull in that physical note. So our assistant has the ability, like you can see it on screen, to pull in a physical item from the app, like as a card that's interactable in the chat. And if I were to click this, it'll pull it up like as the real data object. So,
right.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm gonna pause here. But I think that's like my answer to like how the assistant's a little bit different than just strapping the LLM. It interacts through the app a lot like a person would, and it has the ability to like see the cards like we do, and choose whether or not it wants to bring that in before it answers questions.
How do you give it that ability, Jeff? Is that the system prompt? Like talk us through the what are basically the inputs that have to go into the API call? I guess what are you using behind the scenes here? Is it OpenAI? Is it
So models, I think it's currently Sonnet 4.6. I'm hoping to get that upgraded a little bit, just because the prices continue to go down as these newer models release, which is cool. But yeah, I'm just using what's it called, Anthropic's API right now to manage the assistant's thinking. And then we have, and again, I joked in my email that maybe I'll make a technical person cringe, but the way that I approached this when I was building the platform, I was wiring up a ton of API calls to a low-code platform called Glide Apps that I was giving an AI assistant access to through make.com. So the way that I thought about the organization of that was, okay, I need this assistant to be able to make tool calls that will get at the specific data it needs to answer questions. So the way that our backend was created originally was like, there's a function for search relationships based on like name or about. There's a function for search projects based on name and about. And then these functions obviously return specific results based on what the AI model inputted. And we carried that exact same structure over. So the system on the back end has access to, I think, currently 64 different tools that give it really specific slices of the data in elephants for the user, and that come with really specific instructions about like when to use specific tools versus others. And those tools include things like staging a card. So if I say, hey, give me a task to follow up on catering tomorrow, the assistant has a tool call that lets it construct in a card that looks pretty like this, that would include like the task title and then a button to add it and save it. And yeah, that's kind of how it's working. So it's literally just Anthropic's API looking at a really, really specific set of tools that interact with our database the way that I've designed it since day one.
Yeah.
Are these tools like basically the equivalent of skills, or are they a mixture of, yeah, like skills or code and prose, right? Like what breakdown is, like, how are you, I think my like question behind the question is like, how are you managing like the internal prompt library? I know like when I started building tools, they were like everywhere, right, throughout the code. And then I was like, no, these need to be like a little bit more centralized so we can like see them. And then something David did a couple weeks ago was build this like prompt canvas, right, for which will maybe show in a future episode of, hey, like here's how the prompt is, and like here's, you can trace your way through it without like looking at the code, right? Because I think maybe many people, I'm not sure how technical you have been in your like previous life before AI coding.
Yeah.
Like I just like don't look at code anymore. I'm more like higher level. I know enough to know that it needs to be refactored when I'm like seeing it go through. So yeah, how are you dealing with that prompt stuff?
Yeah. So you actually called something out that's funny, and maybe some founders that are watching this and are scared about, oh, are they technical enough or not, might be reassured by. When I was building this low code, no code, I had an extremely clear grasp on exactly how every single thing was working. Again, I wasn't writing full stack application code, but I had popped up a window over here, and I'm gonna like quickly scound around to find it. But like in make.com, I had like these scenarios that were running the assistant's brain, and the way that all of our tool calls worked was we literally had this AI node here, the make AI agent that you could hook up to whatever provider you were using. And the way it worked in Make was you literally gave it each of these little sub scenarios, and each of these sub scenarios was an action that the agent could take on our database for the user. So when I went to do the rebuild in full stack, I was using Opus 4.8 at the time and Codex as like a reviewer. And I basically said, hey, here's the way this works today. I have this make.com node that has my system prompt, and the system prompt includes really light level instructions for each tool that get auto imported by Make. And here's each of the tool scenarios and what they do against our database. And from that, we built just a basic helper that works essentially the exact same way. There's a large system prompt, and then that gets attached with all the tools that it has access to. And whenever the assistant looks at the tools, it can see like a description specifically of what each of the tools are, and then it makes the decision what to call versus what not to call. If you ask me to go more technical than that on the back end, like I could tell you each of the tools we have access to, and I can tell you what the system prompt looks like. But anything more granular than that has become a little bit of a black box for me, which is kind of scary. Like, again, I love the fact
I think it's normal. Like it has to be normal, like, because they build so much.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah. If any like PM from Make or N8N wants to know why all their customers are churning, this is like the same thing that me and Taylor did with this giant N8N flow. Is like we just essentially exported it and said, "Hey, Opus, rebuild this, please." So this looks like my 2025. So something that Taylor and I have run into, and I think I'm curious how you deal with this now. the one thing that was nice about Make is if I wanted to know what the agent was doing, I could just open up this UI and I was like, oh, here's exactly what it has. And here's a nice, pretty interface where I can see all the connected tools, and I know it matches one-to-one with what's going on in the code. There's no abstraction where I might have asked it to build me a pretty canvas and so, maybe the canvas doesn't match the code. When you want to know now, what does the elephant's assistant do? You can't pour through all the the source material, right? So how do you think about that? Like, how do you audit number one, what it is all connected to, and basically what has replaced make.com as your like audit surface for the agent?
Yeah, so I'd say there's two answers there. The first one is the one that would give software people a nice sigh of relief. Is I've been extremely anal about building very, very clear like breadcrumb trails. So whenever the assistant is running and doing things on behalf of a user, we are adding logs into a database that say each individual tool call that the assistant made. Obviously, this is anonymized, so we don't include information like relationship name or anything. But we're looking at the tool calls that the agent made. We're looking at any errors that came up, why errors came up. Like we have an entire like table that shows here's every single step an assistant took for a specific run in order to get to its ultimate outcome and the final message that it's sent. And that's been really helpful. So like, a customer will text me and say, hey, I asked the agent to do this, and it like went and created a task completely unrelated. What happened? I can go into those logs and see very granularly, like, here's the decision-making process that the agent took. And, the tool it wanted to call wasn't available because during some PR, we flipped it off because of a bug. I need to go fix that. Like, that's been helpful. And then in terms of like the what is replaced make.com, again, it's scary. I'm worried about the liability here, but genuinely like Claude Code, like if I have a really high level question about, hey, I need to see which files contain our system prompt and all of our sub scenarios, and I want to understand how that's interacting. Like I can ask Claude to explain that to me like I'm a 5-year-old, link all of the files, and then I can click through the repo myself to understand and verify what it's telling me is true. But like my starting point would literally be asking like a brand new fresh string of Claude to investigate, understand the code base, and answer my question accordingly in a way that I will be able to follow somebody who's technical enough to understand what you're saying, but not full stack technical. And that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I mean, it really puts you in the position of being the manager. You don't really want to know what the person reporting to you is, like everything that they do, but you want them to explain when you have a question. Yeah. I mean, this mirrors exactly what we've run into and talked about on previous episodes. I've just got to think that like someone at some point in the next, I would bet 6 to 9 months, is going to release something that like straps a visual UI on top of all this stuff, because it is so much easier to watch the information transform in Make or in N, and like, even though these models are smart, they don't always troubleshoot the right way. And try as we might, we haven't been able to give them full reign of debugging themselves. And so just being able to watch that, okay, user put something into the chat and here's how it washed across all these things visually so I can pinpoint the patterns. I don't know. It feels needed to me. I want to resonate to you.
I'd say the closest I have to that again is the logging that we do in our database. Again, and that would be no different than looking at your make.com log and reading it like step by step. But it's definitely not visual and it's definitely not live. Like there have definitely been points where when I was in make.com, I would have this run once thing going and I'd send it a text and I would literally watch like it go through the entire funnel and see exactly where things were getting caught up. I do miss that a little bit, and I admit that it's a bit of a black box, but the trade-off of speed that like I've gotten as a founder, like the whole this world of being able to bring in dynamic cards inside of like an in-app chat that are all built based on the actual user, like I could not have done that in Glide apps, which was like the front end that I was using for the app. So like the sacrifice of, okay, I don't have as much of a visual interface over how my software runs for the benefit of I can very carefully PR features that I would not have been able to build ever unless I had spent like 12 months doing it. Feels like it's been worth it to me as a founder. But I'm sure eventually, knock on wood, that it'll bite me in the butt and something will come up that I don't know how to answer. Worry about that a little bit.
Talk to us about the build process. You mentioned that earlier. So you're sitting there and you're like, oh, it'd be really nice if it wasn't just chat text. It'd be cool if we had actual objects in the chat. Walk us through how a feature like that comes to life. What's your dev process look like now?
Yeah, there's certain things that I won't touch. I'll go ahead and like start with that. So anything related to like authentication or integrations with things like Google, I'm being really, really careful about. I just want to like say that before I explain my dev process. Because I think there are things that I just don't know yet. And if I do something like accessing a person's Google Suite through the Google API, like I want to make sure that somebody who actually knows full stack software reviews and reads the code and make sure I'm not introducing an issue. That said, for things like, oh, right now my chat can look at the note and it can say that it found the information, but I would love the user to be able to see that in chat. That's something that I don't think introduces any sort of security concern. So my process usually is I'll start by, I was a graphic communications major in school, so I learned how to use programs like Adobe Illustrator to do like a lot of visual design. So I'll usually mock up like UI screenshots of what I want things to look like. And then I'll go to Claude and say, hey, currently the app does this. Here's the section of the app that I'm talking about. I would love to be able to introduce a feature like this where cards are implementable. And I always start with like just high level auditing and planning. So I'll ask Claude, like, check every affected surface that would be impacted by a build like this, and create like a plan document for how we might implement a feature like this and the steps that we would need to do in order to get that to happen. And then I get our boy Codex, which is ChatGPT's equivalent to Claude Code, to look at the PR that Claude puts up. And I tell Codex, tear this thing apart, and find any other flaws in the code, obvious mistakes, broken conventions. Like if we already have a convention documented in the code base, like my big fear with vibe coding is that I'm just going to end up in a spider's nest of like repeated functions that got configured across the app instead of using like a proper global. So I have Codex tear it apart from that perspective, comment up on the PR. Claude gets those comments, reapplies. I think something I've learned is that AI will always find more problems to fix. Like almost always, it's really bad at saying, okay, cool, we're good. But once I get to a point to where it feels like they're arguing over semantics, that's when I'm like, okay, this is probably good enough to begin implementing. And then, yeah, one PR at a time through the plan. I'll get Claude to implement the code, Codex to review. Then I go through and human read the plan, the code that got written, just to make sure there's nothing obvious. And then I'll like quote unquote dog food, as Claude loves to say. I'll just go in and make sure that what they've built hasn't broken on the Vercel preview. And yeah, and I just work through things slowly but surely like that. So that's kind of been the build process since I switched out of low code and into vibe coding.
So mockups, basically idea, you brainstorm with Claude in the chat, you mock up in a visual tool like Adobe Illustrator, and then you move into a plan, and then like sort of antagonistic back and forth code reviews, and then you test it yourself. Have you tried anything on like how do you review all the different flows that the agent could go through to make sure that you didn't introduce some weird change in agent behavior? Is that something that you're
Are you referring to the agent that our app offers, like the AI assistant, or are you talking about the way that Claude Code's actually writing code?
The elephants agent. So like something Taylor and I are, spending time on and struggling with, just like everybody else, I guess, is like once you have this thing in your product that's not deterministic, how do you QA it? And then how much money and time do you burn QAing it each time before you feel like it's okay?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the term red teaming. What's it called? Obviously, there's a good bit of that where you go in and you just like berate the assistant with just ridiculous requests and stupid stuff. And you obviously just have to do some level of human testing there. I'd say again, like the assistant in the app, its surface is only touched when I'm either editing its tool calls or its system prompt. So obviously when I'm doing a code, like a push on something, or like just recently we brought in the ability to like pin a chat inside of this window so people could save some of the chats that they've had going on. Like things like that don't touch the assistant surface because it doesn't affect any of the tools that it calls, doesn't affect the data structure in the app at all. It doesn't affect any of the prompts. So as long as like nothing related to the assistant is touched, I don't feel it's necessary to be stressed about that for like a generic PR in a different part of the app. When I'm affecting the agent, like giving it new tool calls, giving it a different way to read or interpret a data structure in the app. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it's just like telling Claude and Codex, like assume bad behavior is going to happen. Let's build in catch-alls for those types of situations, and then like red teaming it myself and just seeing like, okay, if I hostilely tried to delete every single node in a workspace through a single command, that should get rejected. Is it rejected? And just testing it in stupid spaces. Like this is our assistant stress test space where I do shit like that to make sure that it's going to pass those sorts of tests. There's definitely still risk.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody's really like, this is sort of where the sidewalk ends. This is the new frontier of
this. To me is like the people doing an okay job, I guess, or the like frontier studios spending millions and millions of dollars on their test suites every time. But like no human can do that. And the thing that I'm rebuilding right now is like we have this product we're working on. It's got like this interview ingestion pipeline. Cool. And I've needed to very much change that in a major way over the past week or two, because like you think about like Napkin or Plod or Google Meet or Teams, like they all have different formats. And like not only that, but they get broken, right? Like if like it happens all the time now that I'm seeing these, and I have like a series of 40 interviews that I'm going through now and trying to process properly each time and kind of correct them a little bit. But like I do have this series where I'm like, oh, we just changed something on interview 10. I got to go back and rerun interviews 1 through 9 and look at it. Like I'm sure people are going to be yelling at their like podcasts, like evals Taylor. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. Like those work, but I kind of need to see it work in the UI, because like it is a AI thing doing something, putting something on a screen. And if I see that thing working over and over again, I build trust in it, just like you build trust when you're coding with these tools. I have to just like build the trust. And then the vibe part of vibe coding, for me at least, is I can kind of feel when I'm going off the rails with these tools, right? And I don't know if it sounds like you've developed that, because being a designer, like a kind of a graphic designer, like you're talking more like an engineer than I bet you did before you started programming with AI. And I think it's a natural thing that happens to people, is like, they're like, oh, I want to make sure that the code is not spaghetti. It's like, yeah, no one cares about that except someone that has to maintain the system. So like, that's an engineering thing, right? So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say I'd add to like, while I didn't study like formally computer science, like all throughout school, I was like writing software and self-teaching. Like my first startup, we were doing wearable devices for hikers in remote areas. They could like press a button and get located. And I wrote all the software that got put onto the embedded hardware for that. And I think like I have enough software experience to know the right questions to ask. And like, I think the stuff that gets scary to me is like, I've got friends, acquaintances maybe, that will be like, yeah, I just like tell it to build it and I don't like look back, and then I just like put it in front of the next customer and I'm like, oh, like, do you like look at the PR that it put up, or like do you read the plan that it made? And they're like, no, Claude's just like so good, it'll just like do all of it. And I'm like, wow, okay. Like if you're putting that into like a production app that people are paying you hundreds of dollars a month for access to, and you're not even like reading the plan to understand what decisions the AI is making about like that's kind of scary to me. And the other thing is I definitely have been maybe too much of a hard ass on not letting any of the AI be autonomous in the sense of like by default, the AI assistant can't do anything without the user reviewing and hitting approve. So like if I ask the AI assistant right now, like create I'd just like create me 10 tasks related to catering in our catering project, please. Obviously, if we were being kind of crazy, the assistant would just go and do 10 writes straight to our database for tasks assigned to this user and create that. And like to me, that would be a little bit scary. There is the auto mode that people could turn on if they really wanted to operate that way. But by default, what you're about to see is what the assistant ultimately has to do, which says, I'm going to propose a card for the user to review that says, here's the task. It can do batching. So like right here, like for instance, I didn't even have a catering project in this team space. I have no clue what this team space has. But it said, okay, you don't have one. So I've created it, but you'll notice like it hasn't created anything yet. I have to still go through here and click add. And then I have to review each of these tasks and make sure that these are cool, or I can obviously like batch accept them. There's an auto mode, but again, like I don't know that anybody yet trusts AI enough to completely manage their workspace, especially when you're talking about like notes and tasks related to important relationships for an organization. I never wanted the assistant to be able to just like completely autonomously do that without the user's intervention. And the assistant is never, even in auto mode, allowed to do anything destructive without user approval. So archivals, deletions, always have to get approved by the user, even in auto mode. And I think we can do things like that as founders that are vibe coding to make sure that our products don't accidentally do something like ridiculously destructive on behalf of either a bad user or a dumb user.
Yeah, you don't want to make any irreversible decisions. So Josh, is this a Mac app? Am I noticing? Yeah.
It is a progressive web app, which is like the best decision I ever made. I've been given shit for not being on the App Store, but PWA means it works beautifully on the phone. It works beautifully on the Mac. It can be installed through Chrome. Anybody who wants to use it can use it wherever. So it's a PWA.
Oh, very cool. Okay, that's awesome.
Like I just pulled it up. I don't know if the podcast will show it clearly, but I'm in the exact same chat string, looking at the exact same chats on my phone. All mobile friendly, so it's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love learning about these new formats. I don't think I've ever done a format like that before. I don't know that I have any other questions. I mean, this is really, I love the live demo, by the way. Like, I love that you're like that's the confidence that you get from knowing what it's doing, right? Like if you haven't taken that time to audit the decisions, then you have less trust in the outputs. So I think this is really cool. Taylor, do you have any other questions?
No, this is cool. No, I don't. This is
Josh,
just like soaking it in, right? Like other people doing similar things. I'm like, great, we're all on the right track together. Like it feels like, nope, this is good.
Yeah. Well, that's why we do this podcast. It's just fun to see. I'm at the beach, but it's like everybody's on the same like wave, like riding, looking right and left. Like, yeah, okay. We're all out here. Josh, anything else that you want to show or talk about before we wrap up?
Yeah, two small things. The first one is I appreciate you guys for doing this type of podcast, because as much as you said it's nice to look left and right and see people, I often don't, as a solo founder, feel like that's going on. And sometimes I'm sitting here like, dude, am I like neck deep in AI psychosis, being convinced that I'm building like a stable enough app? And then when I have conversations with customers that are like, yeah, we're managing like a lot of UNC's entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we want to bring potentially elephants in as the tool to manage all of that. I'm like, dude, this thing's got to be bulletproof. Claude says it's good, but like, what does that really mean? So to hear that there's other founders that are also using these tools similarly, I don't know, it's reassuring. So I appreciate you guys for that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, and then the last thing I wanted to say, and this is more just like product vision. We can probably, maybe you guys end up cutting this out. But I just wanted to say, like, the idea that I'm really excited about for elephants is, if AI ever gets to a point to where it's able to really intelligently understand an entire organization's operations, the people they know, we start to see some like really cool shit. And that's what excites me the most about this project. Is we've been using it for the last probably 6 months to manage everything in NC State's Entrepreneurship Clinic, for instance. And we have a new director coming in right now. And I remember the other day, I was just like curious. I'm like, how would it handle this? And I shot it a message, was like, hey, we have a new director. Like, which programs and people should I be worried about? Or should I speak to understand, like, are we on the same page about this transition happening? And the assistant, like, just slaughtered the response. It was like, here's like 4 or 5 programs that you've spoken to recently that you've had conversations with where they expressed concern about this new director. You should check in with them in a few weeks. Here's a task to follow up. And like, I just feel like this is like the direction that eventually AI is going to get, to where it's just kind of this like very well-knowing presence for teams. And that's what I'm most hyped about. So I just wanted to close on that. That's why I'm doing elephants. That's what I get excited about, is like kind of enterprise knowledge with AI helping teams use it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really inspiring vision. I think like the more that teams also get used to putting all of their information into that system, the faster we get there. There's like behavior change that goes along with that, right? That's like, all right, I have to record all my meetings, and like I have to be okay with AI kind of combing through everything I'm talking about and doing. And I think like all of us are on the same page that the pros very much outweigh the cons there. And the more you feed into these systems, the more incredible the outputs get. It's really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Where can people find you?
So joinelephants.com is our landing page. It's where you can book a what's it called, demo, if anybody's interested in the product point of view. Find me, just look me up, Josh Scooter, on LinkedIn, shoot me a message there, or josh@joinelephants.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate you coming on.
Course,
Taylor, anything we need to sign off here?
No, I don't think so. Just find us on the internet. Like, there we have show notes for every episode in a Git repo, and right after we get off this call, I'm going to use AI to process all this stuff and get all those show notes out. So
All right.
just check it out.
Until next time. See y'all.
Cool. Thanks.